welcome to She Knows Arsenal Daily, keeping you up to date on all things Arsenal. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another show. On today's show, we're going to be talking about Timber's return date clue, Arteta's thoughts on Arsenal's lukewarm attack, who's in and who's out for Lens, and a new transfer link. Let's go. Arteta gave his thoughts on Arsenal's lukewarm attack, and this is what he said.
Space to run, guys. When you are sitting in traffic, I want to go 100 miles an hour, but I have 3 buses and 55 taxis and motorbikes around me, so it's tricky. But we need to want to get to where we want to get, and in order to do that, we have to be really solid, and I think we've been really, really solid, so we have to continue to that.
Sorry, do you think it's possible to have both, in the sense, best of both worlds, that obviously the attack ability while having the defensibility, or do you think it always has to be a balance?
Yeah, but I think game state is a big definer of that, and you see that time and time again in the league or in any other. Because in the Champions League, what happened? We were really excited against PSV. We scored early. We do that against Sevilla was the same.
Arsenal have statistically faced the deepest blocks in Europe. Arsenal have struggled to access central spaces, which to some of you guys will be considered zone 14. And I believe that this has a lot to do with Martin Odegaard. Odegaard is back from injury and he had an okay game against Brentford, but Arteta's comments led me down a bit of an Odegaard rabbit hole, and this is what I found. This is coming from OptaStats. His touches per 90 have dropped significantly in zone 14, and his touches are down in all advanced and central areas. He's not getting near the goal enough. It's always going to be difficult to maintain the level that he had last season. I said at the beginning of this season that I do not expect him to get 15 goals again. I think, there's a reason why Kevin De Bruyne is like the only one beyond Odegaard that have reached 15 non-penalty goals for a midfielder in the Premier League. I do think there's a reason for that, and that's because it's very unlikely to replicate it and do it again. So I never really expected him to have that same level of form in terms of GA, but what I did expect was for him to be more influential in our games. One of the things that stands out to me is that Rice's passing to Odegaard in open play, he only passes to him 4.7 times per 90 this season. Partey did so at 6.2 times last season. And so Odegaard is not receiving the ball as much from the DM, but equally where he's receiving it is not as dangerous. Rice is passing it to Odegaard in wide areas, and Thomas Partey was passing to Odegaard between the lines. Which is something that I think we all can kind of see with our eyes, but when you see it there written in numbers, you can see why that would be something that would hurt Arsenal in terms of accessing those central areas. And I think one thing that Partey did really well is that he would draw the opposition to him and then do a little quick move, and then that would move the players around and that would make the space for Odegaard, right? And Odegaard is really important in terms of getting the ball out wide to Bukayo Saka. And that partnership was so lucrative for Arsenal last season, but we haven't quite seen that same connection and relationship between Saka and Odegaard. Last season, Odegaard's passes to Saka were 13.7 meters in length. That's how long those passes were. And this has dropped to an average of 11.3 meters this season, showing that Arsenal's captain is closer to Saka, which it reduces the likelihood of Saka being found in space. Now, people can just say it's because of the deep blocks, but ultimately, if Odegaard is standing out wide and Saka's also standing out wide, then yeah, they're going to be a lot closer to each other. Where if, how it was last season, Partey is passing to Odegaard between the lines, then he draws players more central and then Saka has more space. So we have to figure out a way to space the players out a little bit better so that Saka, he's already drawing so many players to him. Odegaard doesn't need to bring his players to him as well. Odegaard is also being marked quite heavily. So when you have 4 or 5 players around 2 players, ultimately those two are not going to be able to find those spaces and find those gaps. But that also means that somebody else is open, or there's somebody else that can make a run into space. and nobody is actually finding that player, which is interesting. Now, is this instruction or is this on Rice and Odegaard to figure it out? You guys will let me know in the comments. Let me know right now in the comments if you think this is it by instruction that Odegaard doesn't come central, doesn't receive the ball in between the lines, stands closer to Saka, or is it on Rice and Odegaard to figure out how to get into spaces to pass to each other in between the lines to make it easier for everybody else? You guys let me know that in the comments. But if we're going to do anything special this season, it's super important to get Odegaard into some decent form, and hopefully that starts tonight against Lens. Did Timber drop a clue about his return? Timber is doing some running in the gym. Does that mean that he's ahead of schedule? Mikel Arteta was asked about Timber's recovery, and when Mikel was talking about whether or not Jurrien Timber would be on the grass, this is what he said. He said, "I hope so. Doing what kind of activity? That's something very different. He's been for a few weeks. He's been for a few walks, but that's very far from competing." Now AFC says he is currently at London Colney doing some gym work, as shown in his latest Instagram post, with him still expected to be back in training in January. That would be a miracle. All ACLs are different, but seeing how Livramento played for Newcastle last night against PSG, I did kind of feel like that's hopeful. You know, he's somebody that suffered an ACL, but still looked to have his burst. You know, he still looked to be a player that had quite a bit of speed and he was moving right. And it just gave me a little bit of hope for Timber, because ultimately what we're hoping is that beyond coming back soon, we want him to come back like the player that we remember. He's such an important part of the team. And whether he's back for next season or for a Champions League final this season, wink, wink, I just hope that when he's back in action for Arsenal, he is the player that we all fell in love with. Who is in and who is out for Lens? Mikel Arteta confirmed that Ben White will be available for today's clash against Lens after being seen in training separately from the rest of the group. Vieira is out until the January break with a groin injury. We wish him a speedy recovery. And although ESR and Partey will not be fit enough to play today, they could make an appearance before the January break, which would be a massive boost for the Gunners. Arsenal are targeting Miguel Gutierrez from Girona. Arsenal are monitoring Girona's left back Miguel Gutierrez as he is performing well in La Liga. This is coming from Fabrizio Romano. Arsenal are also said to have sent scouts to track him in recent weeks, and he is under contract until 2027. The interest goes back all the way to 2019. This is from The Athletic. Arsenal are monitoring Real Madrid's 19-year-old left back Miguel Gutierrez. His contract is believed to contain a 40 million release clause. Gutierrez is registered with Wasserman, the same agency that represents Mikel Arteta. Girona currently sit joint top of the La Liga table with Real Madrid after 14 matches, and so far they're one of the biggest shocks and stories of the season. If you guys have been living under a rock, like, Girona are doing very well in La Liga, and for the most part have been leading it up until this last game week. And so a lot of their players are gaining interest from other clubs. Shock, shock. Nobody is shocked by that. Gutierrez is, 22. He joined Girona from Real Madrid, and he's now one of the first teams on the team. Now he's one of the first names on the team sheet. He made 50 appearances for Girona to date, and he scored twice and had 5 assists. So that sounds like a pretty attacking player from the left back position. Michael McDonald, who blogs for Le Grove, said this while watching him live. You can immediately see the confidence and quality, playing with even more adventure than Zinchenko. Plays inverted behind the Bilbao midfielders. Things I noticed just by looking at a couple of clips of him. He's tall. He's about 6 foot tall. Very forward thinking. Can go inside and outside, but I'm not quite sure he's a good defender. I like everything that I'm hearing. I like everything that I'm seeing. My question is, do Arsenal actually need another left back? We seem to have a lot of players that can play there, maybe even an overload on that side. Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Kivior, and Timber, when he's fit, can all play in that left back position. I do think Timber will eventually play on the right, but where does Mikel see Tomiyasu and Kivior playing long term? I do think that that will play a big role in whether or not Arsenal pursue a left back. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think Arsenal need another left back? And if so, which player would you like to see there? Maybe this Miguel Gutierrez. All right, guys, that's it for the show. Obviously, this is not the last time that you guys will see me today. I'll be doing a live watch along for the Lens game, and pre-match vibe starts an hour before the game starts. Then we will roll right into player ratings. So make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and get into the comments after to let me know what you guys thought of this show and what you guys thought of everything we spoke about on the show and all that kind of stuff. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.